Now, given that John, George, and Dave are all working together as a trio to really deliver the Star Wars franchise in a proper way to the Star Wars community, we have a lot of announcements on the horizon, not just at Celebration, but also at D23, which, by the way, is going to be the main event this year that's going to hold the most announcements. We're also going to be relying on a lot of the earnings calls by Disney and how Bob Iger is going to present some more announcements by this November. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, given that where we stand today is a very delicate time when it comes to Star Wars, basically, they have to really create a successful flow of consistent Star Wars stories that's going to actually convince fans that Star Wars is back in action. And the Disney executives have said this many times, that they believe that the Ahsoka series is going to be the home run for Disney Star Wars on Disney+. And they are aiming to make it the new flagship show over The Mandalorian. That's the current plan right now. Does that necessarily mean that they have lost faith in The Mandalorian? I don't believe so. I think that they just want to actually focus on something being a main for a while to switch things up a bit. So, on to the big thing here. Everything that we have known about the Ahsoka Tano series is that it is basically everything that you do love about the mythology. The Jedi, the cosmic force, the netherworld, the dark side and the light, good and evil, stuff like that, is going to be the main focus of the Ahsoka series through and through from start to finish. And this is something, by the way, that the Kenobi series was meant to be, but did not really live up to expectations. And basically, this is John and Dave's version of doing that correctly. So, with that being put out there, with Lucasfilm preparing to finish up with the Ahsoka Tano show, which is moving along well in post-production and gearing up for a fall release, one of the big scenes that was shot in a couple of months ago, serving as one of the big battles in the middle of the show, is set to involve Ahsoka, two new villains, and Sabine Wren. Now, the scene that was shot and written by Dave Filoni with the help of Favreau involves both villains Baylin, who is a dark Jedi portrayed by Ray Stevenson, with an apprentice named Shin. Now, this character is actually going to combat in a 2-on-2 battle against both Ahsoka and Sabine Wren. Here, Sabine is fighting with Ezra's lightsaber against Shin, while Ahsoka is battling against Baylin. Baylin is said to know something mystical about the Force that has been kept secret from the Jedi Order for ages, and turned his beliefs to the dark side of the Force. The saber duel between the four is described to be a deadlier and fierce version of Duel of the Fates seen in The Phantom Menace, when both Kenobi and Qui-Gon face Darth Maul, with intense stunts and pyrotechnics this time around that were filmed. Ray Stevenson, who plays Baylin, wields some kind of crossguard lightsaber. However, it's unclear if the hilts themselves are ignited or just an actual built-in design of the hilt itself. Now, one of the scenes that were shot that took a total of 5 takes involves Ahsoka getting pinned down by Baylin, where he is about to strike her down, where Sabine Wren then defends Ahsoka from Baylin. Let me stop here quick for 1 second. Now, I don't know if you guys know much about the character Baylin. We've been talking about this on and off on my Twitter, how this is going to be a new Dark Jedi that's going to be sided with Grand Admiral Thrawn. So basically, the big focus for Ahsoka is it's going to take place, we talked about this before, it's going to have flashbacks, it's going to have things to do with the world between worlds, and it's also going to have moments where it jumps ahead in time. About midway through the show, we are actually promised to get a big time jump. Now, how far into the future is the middle point of Ahsoka from Mando Season 3? That's a big mystery right now, and something that I personally am very intrigued about. But this character, Baylin, seems like it's going to be one of the greatest villains ever written by Dave and John, because not only is it being portrayed by Ray Stevenson, but it seems to be somewhat inspired by Joruus C'baoth from the Thrawn trilogy books, which, by the way, he was too a Dark Jedi, but he was a clone. So, in this scenario, it's very likely that this character, for all we know, could be a clone, much like Joruus C'baoth. but it's looking more like he's a character of his own because he was once a regular Jedi who lost his way, turned his way to the dark side, and gained an apprentice named Shin. Now, for those of you that don't know much about Shin, this is described to be a very tactical, fast-paced duelist when it comes to lightsaber duels, of course. We know that Shin is supposed to be one of the most powerful female-oriented characters in the Ahsoka Tano series, portrayed by Ivana Sakno. So, apologize if I am pronouncing that incorrectly, but Ivana is playing Shin in the Ahsoka show. Now, on top of this, alright, progressing further, the tables have turned eventually in this moment where Ahsoka appears weakened and injured, where Ezra Bridger, portrayed by Iman Asfandi, uses the Force in some kind of martial arts nature against Shin. With Ahsoka simply now a spectator, since she's injured, both Baylin and Shin are fighting against Ezra and Sabine. There is a moment where Sabine tosses Ezra's saber back to him finally, where fans will finally get to witness Ezra using his saber once more. It's in this moment that Sabine borrows Ahsoka's sabers and gains the upper hand against Shin, who is an intense, fast-paced saber duelist with some newly applied techniques never seen before in Star Wars. John and Dave have always wanted to do a proper 2-on-2 saber battle with a tag team style in live action, and they are delivering. Now, as far as the environment goes, it's best described to be very similar to, of course, the Sith Temple that we do see in Rebels, of course, where Vader is battling against Ahsoka Tano. And it's in that moment where it makes you wonder, is it the exact same destination, or is it someplace else? Now, the thing about this that I think a lot of fans need to wonder about is that, where do we pick up from here? Well, we're going to be learning more about that as the months roll by. Post-production is very complex with the Ahsoka show because they're taking so much great time and effort on this. In fact, it was supposed to come out in June. They delayed it until a couple of months later. They want to wait it out. They don't want to release this thing right away. And you know what? I think that John and Dave are doing the right thing by delaying this, because the more time spent on it, the better. It's going to be more quality-driven. And that's what Disney wants, by the way. They want this to be the home run, the best Star Wars show ever so far on Disney+. They want it to outperform basically Mando, Kenobi, Boba Fett, and even, of course, others out there like Bad Batch. So there's a lot of excitement and anticipation going into this show among the fans, and this is the big deal by John and Dave. If they fail with this show, which I don't believe that they will, if they do, though, they are most certainly going to lose a lot of fans. I mean, this is like the show that fans are really relying on and looking forward to. So far, we've got 3 great villains coming into play. We've got Thrawn, Baylin, and Shin playing a massive role in this, with the heroes being focused, of course, in the beginning of Ahsoka, Era Syndulla, and Ezra, as well as Sabine, and more to come as well. Now, obviously, there's a lot of work going into this, so I would love to hear what you guys have to say about all this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to morning.